Hello, everybody, and welcome to this live Q&A coaching session that I am hosting here on YouTube. My name is Heather Evans, and I am your confidence coach and career vision strategist. And my business is The Inner Fire. I am all about igniting your potential to live your best, most fulfilling life. I want you to be walking your path of purpose. Now, I host these live Q&A coaching sessions about once a month. And for 2019, I'm committing to hosting these on the last Tuesday of each month. So this is a reoccurring event. I hope that you will join me for future events. And it's where I take your questions. We do some rapid fire coaching. It's all live. And what happens is if people can't show up for the live event, they actually send me questions via email or in private messenger. So that's always an option for you as well. So if we haven't met before, again, my name is Heather. I am a confidence coach and career vision strategist. I work with soulpreneurs around the world. It is my passion helping people walk their path of purpose, doing what they love each and every day. And a large component of my work is around the idea of self-care as soulpreneurs. As soulpreneurs, often we're giving a lot of ourselves, we're in service to other people. And so one of my goals when I work with my clients is to take a really holistic approach. We look at all areas of people's lives. So everything is on the table when you come to these coaching sessions. And I also integrate movement, mindful dialogue, meditation techniques, and breath work into my sessions. It's part of the way I work. So in addition to being a coach, I'm also a yoga instructor, a meditation teacher, and I also teach modern dance. For those of you who didn't know that, I used to be a professional dancer when I was living in Chicago. So there's a little bit of Heather Evans trivia for you. If you have questions as the event goes on, feel free to type them into the chat box and I will do my best to get to them and answer any questions that you might have. So let's dive in. I did get some questions. I got 3 questions sent to me via email and I wanted to take those questions and make sure that they get answered here. So the first question came from Jen, and Jen asked me, what is the #1 thing I can do for self-care? I am an entrepreneur, I'm a mom, and I feel like self-care is the very last thing that is on my list of things to do. So what is the #1 thing that, Jen, you can do for self-care? Now, I have thought a lot about self-care. I've been on my own self-care journey, I'd say really since my mid-20s. I talk about this in some of my work, but I moved around a lot as a child. I was a military brat, and I also suffered from eating disorders for over 20 years. Self-care was very foreign to me. It wasn't something that I ever really considered or did. And so when I started the recovery process of overcoming my eating disorders, I wanted to make self-care a priority. And part of that was working with yoga, working with meditation, going to therapy, which anybody who knows me, I always say everybody should have a therapist. I think it's the greatest thing ever. I have one. But what I found as I got older and when I started my 2 businesses and I just became a mom a little over a year ago, the thing that I found that helped me the most, and the thing that I find that helps the clients that I work with the most, is sleep. Yeah, you heard me. It's actually one of the most simplest ways we can actually take care of ourselves is ensuring that we get adequate sleep. Now, if you're a mom and an entrepreneur, you might be feeling like you're getting pulled in a million different directions. I know I do. I don't know how many children you have, Jen. I have 1 little guy, and I know that it can be challenging balancing home life and work. But what I have found for myself and what I have seen with the clients that I work with is that if we are not getting adequate sleep, the wheels start coming off in different areas, right? And science has shown that sleep is critical to us functioning at our highest capacity. When we are sleep deprived, it actually mimics some of the symptoms of, consuming alcohol. We lose cognitive abilities, we lose focus, we lose our ability to process things and integrate things and internalize and then work through things. So if you're asking me what my number one tip is for self-care, it has to be sleep. Now, you might be saying that's easier said than done. And trust me, when I was in university, when I first started my career, sleep was really low on the priority list. I thrived on coffee. I was notorious for pulling all-nighters. In fact, one morning I was so exhausted. I worked my point to such an exhaustion that I had passed out in my dorm room on the floor with the door open. People were walking by and could see that I was passed out. They didn't think I was exhausted. They thought something else was going on. But because of that experience, and because now I have felt the power of what a good night's rest can do for me, I actually make sleep a priority. The other thing too is that when we sleep, it's actually our body's time to reset. It's where our organs get a chance to detoxify the body. It's where healing happens. And so sleep is critical, not just in terms of cognitive function and us being able to do the things we need to do on a daily basis, but it's really important for our overall health and well-being. If we do not sleep, or if we aren't getting enough sleep, our body actually doesn't have the ability to heal itself, and that is critical for your self-care. So a couple of things, a couple of tips that I have for ensuring that you have the right amount of sleep is know your own body, know the amount of sleep you need to function at your best. For some people, that's 10 hours. For some people, it's 5. So you need to assess your own rhythms when it comes to how much sleep is the best for you. The second thing is create some ritual, create some consistency around the time that you go to bed. Not looking at devices. It can be really hard not to do that. I still struggle with picking up my device when I'm laying in bed and scrolling through Pinterest or Facebook. I'm trying to be a lot better about it. I'm trying to be much more disciplined. And I do notice that it makes a difference if I am not on my device right before my head hits the pillow. Making sure that anything you're consuming before you go to bed, whether that's a television show, anything that you're reading, anything that you're ingesting, is actually serving you. So if you know that you get really triggered by, the news, maybe looking at the news right before you go to bed isn't necessarily the best option for you. Making sure that you're avoiding caffeine after a certain hour of the day if you know that your body gets really triggered by caffeine, if that's something that you ingest, Jen. But what are some ways that we can nurture ourselves? And I like to think about this in relation to my son, where we have a ritual for him that we have in place. Yeah. So the ritual is at 6 o'clock, we turn down the lights downstairs. He's still allowed to play a little bit. But the lights are down. We put away all of the loud toys, anything that can make a lot of noise. We sit and read books with him. Every other night he's getting a bath, a warm bath. But he knows that when those lights go down and the books come out and we play some soft music in the background, his body is getting prepared and he knows, okay, bedtime is coming. And it's interesting how we lose that ritual around bedtime as we get older. So I'm inviting us to kind of take care of ourselves as though we're infants, as though we're toddlers. And what routines would really nourish us? What routines is our body asking for in order to prepare us for the best night's sleep? In the morning, when you wake, a couple of different rituals that you can put into place. Some people I know do morning pages where you pull out a notebook and you write 3 pages, just really quickly, 3 pages. I've actually started doing this. It's an interesting practice. I'm not a big writer. I've talked about this in my other YouTube videos, but I am playing a little bit with this idea of morning pages. So I've been writing out some morning pages and just seeing what comes up. dreams that I remember, things that have come to mind. Some mornings, I'm writing. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm writing. And so it's just maybe a ritual that you can incorporate into your morning practice. In the mornings, I drink a mug of warm water. I try to sit and meditate for a minimum of 10 minutes before my son gets up. And again, I'm not sure how old your children are, Jen. I'm not sure what their routines are, but make it easy for yourself. Pick maybe one thing you can do before you go to bed, one thing you can do in the morning when you wake up, and then ensure that you're getting that adequate sleep as much as you possibly can. So number one tip for self-care, make sure you're getting enough sleep. Jen, thank you for sending your question in. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope some other people got some inspiration around nourishing yourself with some rest at the end of each day. Remember, it's a healing practice, this sleep. It's very important. So the next question came from Megan, and I'm going to read what Megan wrote. She said, I feel like my financial life is a mess. I know there is so much more I could do with my life if this was figured out. How do you get your finances in order? Megan, first off, kudos to you for recognizing that this is something that is holding you back. And we don't talk about finances. It's kind of like there are certain things that we don't talk about with our friends or with people we know, and finances happens to be one of them. And I think it's such a shame. There's such a stigma around talking about money with people, and I find it really interesting that that's out there. So Megan, I want to thank you for bringing your question to the coaching session today. It's a really important one. And it's one that I actually feel very passionate about. When I married my husband, I had over, it's kind of hard to remember now. It's been 8 years, people. I want to say I had between $60,000 and $70,000. No, wait, let me correct that. Sorry. I had over $45,000 in credit card debt. Yeah, $45,000. And then that did not include my student loans from both undergrad and graduate school, which was another large amount that needed to be paid off. My finances were a disaster. And my mindset at the time was, I'm always going to be in debt. I was working for a nonprofit. I was living in Chicago. It was just, I was always going to be in debt. This was going to be my life. I was always going to be living paycheck to paycheck. And, that was just the life that I was going to be living. And when I married my husband, we made a conscious decision that we were going to get our finances in order. And so, Megan, I'm so happy that you wrote in with this question. What we did is we took a look at all of our debt. So who did we owe? What did we owe? And we got it down to the penny. We knew exactly how much we owed, who we owed it to, what we owed it for. And we made a list of the debts that we had. After that, so the other thing that we did is when we had the grand total of how much we owed, and this applies to our credit card debt, we weren't touching student loans at that point. When we knew the amount of debt that we had to pay off, we actually created what we called our debt thermometer. And that was where on the side of our refrigerator, we had a thermometer that had the full amount that we owed. And anytime we would get that amount down, we would actually color it in with red marker. So it was this visual representation of, okay, we are paying off this amount. And we had mini goals along the way. So the first 5,000 we paid off, we got ourselves a nice bottle of wine. The second 5,000 that we paid off, we treated ourselves to something else. So that's the first thing I would recommend. Get really clear about how much you owe, where you owe it, get it down to the exact amount. After that, you want to create a game plan for getting a hold of your budget and then starting to pay that debt off. So if you aren't making a budget right now, Megan, that's the second step that I want you to do. I want you to take a look at what you're spending your money on, and I want you to be really honest with yourself. So The first step that I recommend to my clients for this is to take a week and write down everything you spend. Don't change any of your spending habits. Go out to eat, order in, do your grocery shopping, buy your clothes, do the things, get your hair done, get your nails done, do all the things that you would normally do. I don't know if that's what you do, Megan. I'm just using these as examples. Go hiking, go skiing, go to the beach, grab your coffees in the morning. But I want you to write down everything that you're spending. And then I want you to multiply that times the amount of days in a month. And I want you to see, is your income allowing you to spend that much per week? Now, in that week, I also want you to break down things like your rent. So if you pay monthly rent or if you have a mortgage, how much is that per week in your month? Okay, like your gas bill, your electricity, if you pay for garbage pickup, so things like that. And I want you to see, are you earning enough to actually be spending the amount that you are? If you're not, got to make some adjustments right away. So what can be cut out? What is no longer going to be happening? Otherwise, if you've got room, you're going to start saying to yourself, okay, where are the priorities? What do I want to keep doing? And then what will be treats? And then you can start to scale back and start to figure out your budget from there and actually start allocating money to your debts. And you want to start pay down the smallest debt first. So if you have multiple credit cards, if you've got other things like that going on, pay down the smallest debt first, and then work on the next biggest one, and then the next biggest one. You want to get the momentum going. So you'll pay down the smallest debt first. You'll be putting extra money on that. And then the other debts that you have, you'll be putting down the minimums just to keep the payments going, okay? Once you start doing that, you're going to start to see some progress and the momentum will start to carry you forward. Now, a lot of people ask me, what do you use for budgeting? I personally use You Need a Budget. I will type that into the chat box. Actually, I'll do that right now for people. You Need a Budget. It's YNAB. You can use that tool. I have found it to be amazing. Other people use Mint. Other people use standard, paper and pencil, and they chart everything out that way. Find a method that works for you. I am not an affiliate of You Need a Budget. I just know that it worked for me. You Need a Budget was transformational in how I saw my money working for me instead of my money being an enemy. And that's why I recommend it. And it also transformed my husband and my relationship as we talked about money, because money is one of those things that impacts relationships. Megan, I don't know if you're in a relationship, but money is one of those things that gets really sticky in relationships. And so we want to make sure that you're using a tool, especially if you're in a relationship, that works for both of you. So that's the one that I found that worked for us. So again, get really clear on your spending habits, assess whether or not your income is matching your spending habits. And then you want to get really clear on, okay, I've got to make some decisions. I need to pull back on this. I can keep going with that, but any extra money left over is going toward that smallest debt that you need to pay off, and then the next one and the next one. So Megan, I hope that answered your question. And I have to say, for any soulpreneur out there, for any person out there, getting a handle on your finances is one of the most transformational things you can do for your life. And I say this as somebody who walked into a marriage with $45,000 in debt. I was making some poor choices in my past. But please know that it is possible. You can do it. And I work with my clients all the time on finances because, again, if one area of your life is out of sync, it's off kilter, and that area is finances, it will definitely have a domino effect and start impacting the other areas of your life. It'll impact your ability to go out and hang out with friends. It's a constant stress and worry. In Megan's case, you're saying that it's preventing you from doing so much more with your life. So let's make sure that we're getting you on the right track with your finances. Now, You said that your financial life is a mess. I attributed that to debt. If there's something else going on and maybe the income stream isn't what you want it to be, you can always get a side hustle. You can always be looking for a new job, one that pays you more. And if you have more questions about this, if you want to chat with me, you can always book a free breakthrough session. I offer free 15-minute breakthrough sessions to people who want to touch base with me and start talking about the difference that coaching can make in their life. So Megan, if that's something that you're interested in, I'll be adding the link to the chat box once things are wrapped up here. So thank you so much for your question. I really appreciate it. And thanks for bringing finances to the table. We need to talk about it some more. So I really, really appreciate that. Okay, the third question that came in is, oh, hang on, I have a question. Hello, and what is my channel about? So I am a coach for women soulpreneurs around the world. I offer confidence coaching, self-care coaching. I offer coaching to women who are ready to start walking their path of purpose in life. And as I mentioned earlier, my whole mission in life is to work with the whole of who you are. So I'm not a business coach. I don't just work on your career. I do work with the whole of who you are. So that means that when you come to coaching with me, we look at relationships, we look at finances, we look at your career path, we look at your hobbies and interests, we look at your health. And the way that I work, again, I mentioned this at the beginning, but I combine a lot of different modalities, including mindful dialogue, movement, meditation practices, and breath work, because I find that when we embody and we feel the transformation we want to manifest, it happens that much quicker. My clients see really rapid results, and that's what I love. I want to get you walking your path of purpose as soon as you possibly can, feeling good and confident about where you are going in your life. So I hope that that answered your question. All right. So Sylvia asked such a great question. So appreciative of these questions. Sylvia writes, I'm in partnership with my husband in our business. It's really challenging for us to separate work from home life. Any tips? Oh, Sylvia, yes. As a work from mostly home soulpreneur and coach who has a husband who I see as a partner in everything we do, I know that it can be really hard to separate the romance, the marriage from the work and the business talk. I know that that can be a really hard thing to do. My husband and I, when I was first starting my first business, Journeys on the Mat, which is my yoga and dancing business, we would talk about the business at the dinner table. We would talk about it when I woke up in the morning. We would do these strategy sessions pretty much anytime we felt like it. And what I started noticing is, I'm going to be really transparent here, I got really resentful of him. I felt like he was giving a lot of input, and I was the one who was owning the business. And as much as he is a partner with me in all of the work that I do, I really do see it as a partnership. I ultimately am the business owner. And so we needed to create some healthy boundaries around when we were talking about work and when we were simply like, hey, we're married, we're husband and wife. Isn't this great? No work here. So what we did is we came up with a strategy where we essentially had what I affectionately refer to as board meetings. So we would set aside time. We would always have it in a certain place in the house. So we weren't talking about it on the couch. We weren't talking about it in the kitchen when we were making dinner together. We weren't talking about it in the car. We would sit down at the dining room table, and during these board meetings or during these strategy sessions, we would say to one another, okay, we're putting on the business hats. I'm CEO, you're advisory board member. Now, in your case, you're saying that it's a partnership. So you want to clearly, as you sit down, you're putting out those roles, and you're saying, okay, we're having the work conversation. Or if you're physically going to a workplace, you're like, okay, this is where we work. You know, we're not talking about home life here. And that was the same for us. When we sat down at our dining room table, it was, we're not talking about home life here. This is actually a work meeting. So if you're going to work together with your husband, that's work. Personal life, you know, should come in if there's an emergency. Yeah. Otherwise, we want to keep these healthy boundaries very clear. And then when you're at home, it's home life. Again, unless there's something that's urgent or is a crisis in the workplace that needs to be talked about, you keep those lines very clear. So in our case, the dining room table at these certain times that we would set would be our board meeting strategy session, whatever you want to label it. And that's when we would talk about work. We would talk about the direction of the business. We would talk about client acquisition. We would talk about marketing strategies. We would talk about business plans. We would talk about events that I was putting on and things like that. Outside of that, we really tried to keep it separate. When we weren't in those meetings, it was, this is family time. This is you and me being husband and wife. So that's what I would say is what feels like the best healthy boundary for you and your husband. And because you're in partnership with your husband, it's around, how do we maintain the working relationship? How do we see that as sacred? And then how do we keep our marriage sacred as well? So how do we keep these two things in their sacred spaces? And how can we do this in a healthy way that feels good for both of us? So we both feel heard, we both feel like there is this clear space for both of us to be not just business partner, but also husband and also wife. So Sylvia, I hope that helps. It's a strategy that worked really well for my husband and I. And it's something we've gotten much better about, the flow of talking about work and life. But at the beginning, when we were struggling with that separation of work and home life, that was a strategy that we used. It was, okay, these are the board meetings, these are the strategy sessions. We're putting on our work hats, and we're actually not talking about family stuff. We're just talking about the business. So again, Sylvia, I hope that works. Please let me know. Be sure to send me an email. Let me know. I'll include my email address in the chat box. That way you can let me know how this strategy works for you if you put it into practice. Okay, everybody. So I think that is it for the questions. Thank you to Jen, Megan, and Sylvia for sending them in. I'm so happy I could answer these questions for you during this live Q&A coaching session. It's been such an honor. Again, I host these once a month in 2019. I will be hosting these the last Tuesday of the month, so be sure to look out for the next one. I'll add a couple of links in the chat box. So I will include a link to book a strategy session with me, a free strategy session, if you are interested in receiving some coaching. And outside of that, I wish you all a fantastic Tuesday. Stay ignited out there, and I will see you soon. Take good care. Until next time. Bye.